Hello and welcome to this short screencast about the introduction to the EYFS curriculum. So my name's Jo Robson and I'm the early years lead here, and it's my privilege to introduce early years to you. Okay, so I'm hoping by the end of this screencast you'll have a better understanding of EYFS teaching and learning and what that looks like, but also about the statutory and non-statutory guidance that supports and carves out EYFS. I'm also hoping that you will know about the overarching principles in EYFS also. Okay, so I just love this picture, don't you? Okay, so a classroom from long ago. It's interesting, isn't it, that actually we forget that, you know, at one time not everybody had access to education, and there was a struggle, there was a fight for education for all. In 1870 the Education Act came in, and it meant that all children between the ages of 5 and 12 had the right to education. Later on we find that we moved towards a national curriculum. This was quite significant because the national curriculum actually opens the gate to standardisation, which opens the gate to testing and measuring and comparison. This is important because this actually frames the content of our curriculum. So in early 1962, the Conservative Secretary of State pledged to open a secret garden to the curriculum. Okay, he formed a curriculum study group, and they pushed forward this idea of a national curriculum. However, there was a great debate, and it wasn't until a lot later on, 1988, when Margaret Thatcher, the Conservative Prime Minister, pushed forward change and a standardised curriculum. She had a vision for the curriculum. She saw it as a way of bringing in standardisation, but not only that, she saw to follow would be SATs and testing arrangements which could measure progress, but also, you know, this was a tool to maybe judge schools and compare schools. So from the EYFS point of view, the Early Years Foundation stage was established under the Child Care Act in 2006 and was a framework for children from birth to 5. Okay, and in 2008 the Early Years Foundation stage was introduced. This was a framework that would bring consistency and high quality teaching to young children. So the EYFS was established in 2008. And not long after that, what followed was the EYFS framework. So this is a statutory document used for early years. Remember, statutory is documentation that we have to follow. It's mandatory. Okay, so the EYFS framework is the sort of national curriculum of Key Stage 1 and 2. So early years don't follow the national curriculum, they follow the EYFS framework. And this was first published in 2017. It's had a few amendments since then, but nothing major. But recently they are considering changing the EYFS content. In fact, they're piloting a new framework right now with the hope that this will be introduced in September 2021. Okay, so thinking about early years. Early years is very much about learning through play, through discovery, through active engagement. And in the EYFS framework, it sets out the areas for learning and development, and there are 7 areas. Okay, so 7 areas of learning and development. It also has early learning goals in the EYFS framework, and basically this summarises the expectations of the skills, knowledge and understanding that all young children should have gained by the end of reception. So by the end of reception, the teachers are looking to fill in individual profiles, and they're looking to see if the children have met the early learning goals set down in the EYFS framework. Okay, so early years is a little bit more complicated, I think, than probably Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. So this diagram hopefully will help. You have the EYFS framework. Within the EYFS framework, it sets out the overarching principles. So these are the principles of early years. It's sort of the ethos of early years, what early years should look like. It also tells us of the characteristics of effective learning. These are the approaches that teachers use to deliver the 7 areas of learning. So the areas of learning, we have 3 prime areas: communication and language, physical development, personal, social and emotional development. And then we also have 4 areas of learning. These are specific areas of learning. They are maths, English, creative and expressive arts, and understanding the world. So the 7 areas are made up of the 3 prime areas and the 4 specific areas. And the idea is that teachers focus on that content and drive and move the children forward to achieve the early learning goals by the end of reception. Okay, so the overarching principles are: every child is a unique child. They're seen as being capable, confident, self-assured. Children learn to be strong and independent through positive relationships. So relationships and interactions are at the centre of early years. Children learn and develop well in enabling environments. So the environment in early years is very different from Key Stage 1. It has continuous provisions. These are provisions that are set out for children to engage with individually, child initiated, but also through guided adult interaction. So you have the outdoor provision, you have the workshops, you have the role play, small world and so on. And also the final overarching principle is that we should recognise that children develop and learn in different ways. So it comes back to the whole child, the unique child. So the effective characteristics of learning. This tells us how we approach the teaching and learning. This is our pedagogy, our teaching approaches. So the content should be delivered through playing, exploring and discovery. It's this idea of having a go. The activities should promote active learning, where children are concentrating and encountering difficulties, but they're enjoying the engagement. And then finally, there should be opportunities for creating and thinking critically. Okay, so children are thinking independently, they're thinking critically. Okay, so these are the teaching approaches that we bring into the early years. The 3 prime areas that I mentioned, which make up the 7, as I said, communication and language, physical development, personal, social, emotional development. And in the EYFS and also development matters, you find all the sort of content of what we should be bringing to the early years classroom. And it's the same with the maths. Just to mention that understanding the world covers people, communities, the world and technology, and that's where your science sits as well. And then expressive arts is about exploring media and being imaginative. Now, in the EYFS framework, they have the ELGs, as I mentioned. This is an example of an early learning goal. So by the end of reception, it's expected that the children can actually do all of these things for maths. So we have number, shape, space and measure. Just to mention, in September 2021, the government will be getting rid of shape, space and measure, and there will be more of a focus on early number. So one of the documents I mentioned very briefly is Development Matters. Okay, this is an important document in early years. It's used for planning, assessment and daily observations. And you can see here it's organised according to ages and stages of development, and it's organised according to the specific areas and prime areas. And teachers look to this when they're planning. Okay, it tells them the expectations for the age and stage around each area of learning. So it's an important tool. Again, just to mention that this is going to be replaced with a new version in September 2021. So changes are coming to EYFS. Okay, they are looking to change the content of EYFS framework and development matters. It is being piloted in 25 adopter schools at the moment, but for now, schools are still using the current documentation. Baseline assessment, just an update there. So in early years, the assessment is ongoing, it's continuous, but they are bringing in a baseline assessment due in autumn 2021. This is an individual assessment with children to see where their skills lay in the specific areas of learning. Okay, so just to reflect then, lots there thrown at you, but it's just a whistle stop tour. Maybe you would have a go at perhaps reflecting on the following questions. Okay, it might help you to find out a little bit more about early years and maybe think about what you need to do next. Maybe it's looking at the Development Matters documentation or the EYFS framework. Okay, thank you.